As world leaders prepare to gather this week for a much-anticipated NATO summit in the Lithuanian capital, Vilnius, the alliance's unity may be put to the test once again. This as divisions over the type of assurances made to Ukraine regarding its future membership becomes starker. More than 500 days since the war broke out in Ukraine, Kyiv has pressed to become a part of the military alliance, which some member countries appear to be reluctant to provide. Volodymyr Zelensky has been arguing that the security assurances given by Moscow, Washington, and London when it relinquished its nuclear arsenal to Russia in 1994 were clearly worthless at this point. With the summit in Lithuania's capital on the horizon, some Eastern European countries say that the summit should offer a roadmap for Kyiv as it pushes to join the summit. Although the United States and Germany are wary of any move that might take the alliance closer to war with Russia. Moreover, Russian President Vladimir Putin has cited time and again over the past 2 decades that NATO's expansion towards Russia's borders was a key reason for Moscow's decision to send tens of thousands of troops into neighboring Ukraine last year. The Kremlin has even said that Ukrainian membership of the NATO military alliance will have negative consequences for Europe's security architecture. And Russia will consider such a step a threat, which demands a harsh response. But the question which arises now is, will Ukraine ever become part of NATO? Any expansion of the military alliance must be agreed by all 31 members, and NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg has already ruled out a formal invitation for Kyiv at the summit. Moreover, in 2008, NATO agreed to the Bucharest summit that Ukraine could eventually join the alliance, but NATO leaders did not give Kyiv the membership action plan laying out a roadmap for bringing it closer to the bloc. Under the membership action plan, candidates have to prove that they meet political, economic, and military criteria and are able to contribute militarily to NATO operations. And since 1999, most countries aiming to join NATO have participated in a map. Although this procedure is not mandatory, according to NATO officials, the alliance is hinting towards dropping this hurdle for Kyiv as well. Earlier, Finland and Sweden, formerly neutral states which work closely with NATO, were invited to join the alliance, directly bypassing the membership action plan. While Finland became a NATO member recently, Sweden is yet to become a member. Sweden might get the nod after Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said that his country could approve Sweden's membership if European nations, quote, open the way for Turkey's bid to join the European Union. Although for Ukraine, it is still unclear what path NATO will take to make it a member. As one thing is clear, with Kyiv still being actively involved in the war, it is a huge hurdle for Ukraine. Even the U.S. president has said to consider Ukraine's membership for NATO, the war with Russia must come to an end. This is because if Kyiv is made a member, the alliance under Article 5 then will have to immediately draw itself into an active war, as under Article 5 of NATO's Washington Treaty states that attack on one ally is considered an attack on all allies, which NATO is currently unwilling to do as they try to shield their country from a possible Russian aggression. For more on this, we are being joined by Vadim Turkhan from the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv. Vadim is a former diplomat. Thank you so much for joining us on WION and for providing your views. It seems that Ukraine is keen to gain NATO membership, understandably from the Ukrainian side. However, there are some countries that in the NATO bloc, including the United States, that believe it's very testy and dangerous for Ukraine to join NATO at this point, again, because NATO would become party to the war automatically because Ukraine is fighting Russia. Can you share your thoughts with us?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me. It's my pleasure to be again on your broadcast, and I would like to say all the best to your spectaculars, to your people who are watching you. This is first. Secondly, of course, Ukraine will not become a member of NATO tomorrow and even day after tomorrow. It would be very much naive to think that tomorrow or day after tomorrow during Vilnius Summit, Ukraine will be announced officially as member state of NATO. This is second, and nobody actually expected. But third, what is most important for Ukraine? Ukraine would like to have clear timetable. when and how, on what condition Ukraine will become a NATO member state. Personally, I think that the best way for NATO to invite Ukraine tomorrow, and then to go through all the procedures during 1 year before Washington Summit will be prepared, and then during Washington Summit, which will be jubilee summit, 75 years of NATO establishment dedicated, it will be very much natural to announce that Ukraine has become a member state and to go through all the procedures of ratification of appropriate protocol of signing of Ukrainian membership to NATO during this year. This is, optimal, the best option for Ukraine and for NATO. And now I explain why it is important for NATO, not just for Ukraine. NATO is very powerful military political bloc, or political military bloc, which is dealing with security. And this is most sufficient organization in the world. Never anyone even was thinking about aggression against any member of NATO. And on a certain point in NATO, the decision was made that, okay, Cold War is over, so there is no need to be powerful to develop our military equipment, our military infrastructure, and so on. And NATO became weak. Now, during the 16 months of war with Russia, Ukraine proved that the threats are there. Ukraine proved that there is necessity to improve your own security, your collective security, European one and global security. And now for NATO, it's a matter of principle to become again strong, to demonstrate for Russia, but not just for Russia, for China as well, for some other countries which from time to time are trying to play dirty games in their regions, like Iran or North Korea, that North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, is strong again, and that it is able to make a decision without any consideration of any, blames or ultimatums from such countries as Putin's Russia. For NATO, it's very important. Mm-hmm. And last but not least, this is, by the way, very important for Russia. If Ukraine would become NATO member, then Russia would never think about aggression against Ukraine, because those people are not so naive that they can win in the open war with NATO. And they would put the resources not for war with Ukraine, or with Georgia, or with Moldova, or maybe potentially with Baltic states, but for developing its own economy, developing its own education system, health and care system, and so on. Now they're spending money for nothing, for war. And if they would understand finally that there is no chance for them to win in any war, then they would invest into their own people, their own level of life, and so on. So, for everybody, for all major stakeholders.
Right. So what I understand is you're talking more about a pathway to NATO membership. You're talking about a pathway to NATO membership as opposed to Ukraine joining NATO right away. Thank you so much for joining us on WION, and I look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
Thank you very much.